And here we are, Chapter 6, Participation and DIY Urbanism. So we've just seen the importance of large, complex plans and interventions driven for the most part by leaders and technical experts. So why is it equally important for communities to have a voice and a part in what happens at their neighborhoods? What are some effective examples? And how do these bottom-up practices influence the direction of landscape architecture? Let's have a look. So I love to talk about community gardens because I think they are such a force for positive change. They bring people together, they help with food security, they beautify neighborhoods, they give people something constructive to do, they break down barriers. They're a place for children to learn how to garden and love healthy food. So there's nothing not to love about community gardens. But people haven't always been that excited about them. In the 1960s, when the movement really first started in New York City, it was all about vacant lots and urban decay and guerrilla gardeners doing semi-illegal plantings in vacant lots that weren't actually open to them. It literally meant sometimes filling a water balloon with wildflower seeds and water and hurling it over a fence just so something would grow there. Community gardens have come a long way. They've gone from being a fringe movement to a core part of New York's green space strategy through its Green Thumb initiative, which has more than 100 acres of community gardens. Landscape architects are beginning to take them more seriously too. Key to this was a visionary psychotherapist turned landscape architect named Carl Lynn, who was one of the early leaders to advocate for community gardens. He was, at some point, the landscape architect for Ludwig Mies van der Rohe's Seagram building in New York. He also designed the interior landscaping for the Four Seasons restaurant, so he had very prestigious commissions. But in the late 1950s, he had some kind of an epiphany and decided to start making community gardens in underserved neighborhoods around the country. In New York, Washington, Philadelphia, the Bay Area, and elsewhere, he helped inner-city residents transform vacant lots into what he called neighborhood commons. He believed that where a garden flourished, a community was also going to flourish. He was a founder of Architects, Designers, and Planners for Social Responsibility, and until his retirement in 1986, he was a faculty member of the New Jersey Institute of Technology. He previously taught at the University of Pennsylvania's School of Fine Arts and the Massachusetts Institute of Technology. If you would like to know more about him and his inspiring life and works, the collection of his papers is in the UC Berkeley College of Environmental Design's archives. I highly recommend it. Placemaking. We've talked about the shift in education from the city beautiful Beaux-Arts emphasis on top-down notions of large-scale beauty to the modernist approach that's more functional and more personal. Another way that planning of public spaces has changed is the emergence of the placemaking movement, pioneered by the Project for Public Spaces, but also practiced by other organizations, including one of its successor organizations, Placemaking X. What is placemaking? According to the Project for Public Spaces, and I'm directly quoting them here, with community-based participation at its center, an effective placemaking process capitalizes on a local community's assets, inspiration, and potential, and results in the creation of quality public spaces that contribute to health, happiness, and well-being. So placemaking is becoming an increasingly popular planning method, one that some landscape architects like, and some who are more top-down or design-centered in their thinking not so much. And that's okay. We all think differently. Placemaking X is the initiative of, among others, Ethan and Fred Kent, formerly the Project for Public Spaces, the founders of it. It's a network of placemaking thought leaders, public space activists, regional network leaders, and professionals from all over the world. They have diverse experiences and backgrounds but share the common purpose of placemaking. It's currently formed by 100 leaders, 1,500 advocates from 85 countries around the world. So it's truly creating a global community with local specifics in how communities approach placemaking. One tool they promote is the power of 10, so the importance of having 10 or more cool things to do, with the emphasis on things to do, not just things to look at, to attract a vibrant and diverse audience to a place and keep them there. Here's another great example of placemaking, New York's Bryant Park, and this was also Olin, the same firm that my organization works with, in collaboration with the Project for Public Spaces. This is a textbook example for how to turn a place around. So prior to the design, the Project for Public Spaces carried out extensive research on why the park was so profoundly underperforming, why it was a dangerous, empty, neglected space. They found out that the design is a canvas, but the programming is part of what becomes the painting in a sense. It's simple, functional, and inviting as a park. It's also a positive example of the emergence of private-public partnerships and cities outsourcing park management to external organizations to a good outcome. which isn't always the case, but in this case it is. Most of their events here are free, open to the public, so the private-public partnership does not create a sense of exclusivity, which has happened in other places. The design tactics included small but meaningful interventions like lightening up an entrance that was kind of foreboding and scary, including lots of kiosks and rentals to give people something to do, giving them a reason to get into the park, and also orienting the park towards the library to encourage interaction with that institution, and offering lots of programming, things to do, and 1,000 foldable chairs for people to be able to create their own seating arrangements. Another example of unusual tactics in planning was the 2009 pedestrianization of Times Square, because it was led by the city and its transportation department and a big coalition of businesses and an urban planner. But the tactic was to open it up, and in the old planning tradition of lines of desire, where instead of building sidewalks, you just let people walk around and see where they choose to walk and then build the sidewalks, they left the place as a blank space for people and the local businesses to determine how it would be used before they brought in a design team almost 5 years later to complete the design. And one way to get people engaged with their spaces and invested in them sometimes are just interactive opportunities that anybody feels they can contribute to. A great example of this is the Before I Die wall. A woman came up with this some years ago, an artist, because she was going through grief, and she just decided that maybe other people shared the things that she was feeling. So she created a Before I Die wall so that people could talk about what were the most meaningful things they wanted to do before the ends of their lives. It's a great and moving example of ways to get people in conversation in public spaces. It's a global art project, in fact. It's a simple, inexpensive intervention. This is really a big thing. There are 5,000 of these walls around the world in 78 countries and 35 languages. So clearly this has touched something in people. And planners need to be noticing things like this, like why were people so excited about this wall? Why did this work so well? What's so great about it? And it's really worth considering. Temporary spaces. So, for example, the ones I'm thinking of include critical mass and International Parking Day. That can give the public an accessible, fun opportunity to speak out about what they'd like. International Parking Day, if you're not familiar with it, takes place once a year in cities all over the world when people create temporary miniature landscapes in parking places to demonstrate how much potential there is in what we now use for a silly purpose like leaving your car. Critical mass events or bicycle demonstrations that happen in cities all over the world to advocate for better transit planning. These have been shown to be really effective because they get people excited, they're fun, but they also get the attention of decision makers because people really come out in big numbers. So now that we've touched on how pop-up events can activate spaces in ways that can be done from the design table, we'll move on to our concluding chapter. In my conclusion, I'm going to be talking about some of the future directions that landscape architecture already is taking and contemplate what are some of the ways that it needs to be taking.